We're rolling.
Okay, great. As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan of the Affordable Housing Trust. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are here and present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Penny Dye.
Here.
Rima Sherry.
Here.
Dave.
Here.
Brooke Moore.
Here.
And I think that's all I see at the moment. Members of staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tucker Holland.
Here.
Allie Mitchell.
Here.
Vicky Marsh.
Here.
Ken Bograb.
Here.
Great. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. I think we have Ann Kuspa on the agenda.
Present.
We'll go Steve Hollister.
Here.
Hillary Rappaport, I think we have a presentation.
I am here, thanks.
Thank you. Billy Cassidy.
I am here as well.
And then Dave Arminetti, can you hear us?
Yes, present. Good afternoon, everyone.
Great, thanks for being here, Dave. Good afternoon. This is an open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust, and it's being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening by video conference via the Zoom app that's posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded and all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We will turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. We'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each to provide comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait till the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and be acknowledged and speak to the chair. Finally, each vote will be taken through this meeting and will be conducted by roll call. And now we will move to the first item on the agenda. And that was pre-coffee. Was I close to him or no?
You're close. You're within 15%.
Okay. I'll call him after this.
You need some more practice.
Okay. So item number one, we convene in open session, which we've done. Item two, I'm looking for an approval or motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved by Penny, second by Rima, by roll call. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Brooke.
Aye.
Big crowd today. It's hard to find everybody. And Brian Sullivan's an aye. Approval of minutes. Maybe we should work through these individually in case anybody wasn't at any of them. Allie, I'll look to you to see if there's anybody that shouldn't vote on one of them if they weren't here.
I'll look at the other two, Sully, but I know the CPC, only a few people were there. Brooke, Dave, and you, Brian, I think. Just so you know.
Okay, so for Tuesday, August 24th, is there any comments on those minutes or edits? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Brooke, second by Penny, by roll call. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson. Dave, you're on mute.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan's an aye. Tuesday, September 21st meeting. Any comments, notes, question? Look for a motion.
So moved.
And second,
Second.
Okay, so moved by Brooke, second by Penny, by roll call, Penny Day,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Thursday, September 30th, this was the attendance of the CPC meeting. So Ally, forgive me, who is here that did not attend? Who should not vote?
Penny and Rima.
Penny and Rima should not. Okay, so can we vote without a quorum?
You have a quorum without us. You
We
do.
have three.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you. There are
Oh,
only
no.
60.
6 seats sat at the moment, so that works. Okay. So any comments, questions, or edits? Seeing none, look for Brooke or Dave to make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second from Dave, roll call by Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. All right, so we're through that. Item number 4, public comment for items that are not otherwise on the agenda. First, I'd like to thank everybody in attendance for being here. I'd open the floor to any members of the public by, you can wave at me, hold up an electronic hand. Tucker, was that a wave at me? Okay, so.
Y-
Tucker
Yes,
Holland?
yes, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge past member of the board who passed away recently, Judith Wegner. Her contributions to the Affordable Housing Trust were many. She was a terrific ally to this work, both in her service on the board as well as in her service as the chair of the Planning Commission. And I just thought I would take a moment to recognize and appreciate what she did for our community.
Thank you, Tucker. Are there any other members of the public comment, question, or the board on that note, or? Okay, seeing none. Tucker, I do echo your comments. There's not much more to say other than what you did. We do thank Judith for all that she did for us. Closing public comment, we'll move to item number 5, 31 Fairgrounds. This is a status of the building permit issuance update. I don't know who wants to start with this, whether it's Tucker, Mr. Cassidy, or Ann.
I'll take it.
Great, thank you, Billy.
Really. So I hope everybody had a chance to look in their packets at the HDC approved plans. I think maybe everybody is seeing them for the first time, but they are, I think they're great buildings. Also in that packet, are a number of emails and so on and so forth referencing these building permits that have become quite the topic of discussion. I swung by the Plus department this morning, dropped off a check. The permits are issuing, and I will pick them up this afternoon. So there we go. That's all I have.
That's exciting. Thank you, Billy.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any questions on that for Billy? Seeing none. The next item there is a request for additional funding presentation and Q&A. And Ann, I think that you're leading this. So I'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Ann Kuspa from Housing Nantucket, Executive Director. And we are here. Thank you, first of all, for putting this on your agenda. We're here to ask for additional grant funding towards the development of this Wiggles Way project. So it's 22 units of affordable housing. All of it is affordable, so 100% affordable, income qualified. Basically, through the regulatory process, the project has been redesigned, and we think better, with some changes that will enhance the development's appearance and livability. including an increase in the number of buildings from 5 to 8 buildings, an increase in the total square footage of livable square footage, that is, of all the buildings. There's a change in the construction methodology, which is driving the project towards net zero, which includes a building envelope improvement as well as a solar energy component. There's also been increases nationwide, which anyone who watches the news is probably aware, materials, goods and services, labor, etc., that necessitates a price adjustment. So the total grant that we're asking for is $2.266 million. And the builder has broken down this amount to be about $856,000 for redesigns that came out of the planning board and HDC process. And I attached something that kind of compares, what it looks like before to what it looks like now. So you can really see the big differences that have been incorporated. $600,000 of the ask is towards the solar array, which is necessary to bring us to net zero, as well as $810,000, which is for inflation, basically, and the pressures and consequences, in addition to the enhanced construction techniques that the builder has identified. So overall, it's a nicer looking project, and I don't know if we want to take a look together at the differences or not, but I can just talk through them. But there's more smaller buildings. So the old version had 3 buildings with 4 families in them and 2 buildings with 5 families in them, versus now we've got no more than 3 families in a building. So 6 buildings have 3 families in them and 2 buildings have 2 families in them. So basically the 5-unit buildings have been split into 2 buildings, a triplex and a duplex, that are connected by kind of a breezeway type of structure. The apartments themselves will be larger and more energy efficient, which benefits the tenant themselves and the end user. And then also the net zero capability of the project benefits the island as a whole, just with regards to the third energy cable, the electric cable that we need. And, this is kind of a model that we'd like to put out there into the community, so more people will start to think about net zero when in their building. So this project contains 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and we modeled it to serve 50%, 80%, 110%, and 150% AMI households. So that's different than usually when you have a project like this, you'll have 80% AMI units, and then the rest of them are market rate. So any cost increases like the one that we're seeing here that improve livability or the inflation stuff, that would get passed on and you could increase the rent for the market rate units. But in this case, we don't have any market rate units. All of the units are designed to be affordable at different levels. So our rents are tied to state issued affordability formulas. So our rent rolls can't absorb these costs. And that's why we're coming to you for a grant rather than a loan. It's not possible, and we wouldn't feel comfortable taking on any more debt for this project because we already have a 50-year loan on the project. So anything beyond that is going to be really tough. So the way that we proceeded here was we had our owner's project manager take a look, Steve Hollister, who's also on this call, and he checked out what the changes were to what our original agreement was. And he's developed the change order form, which is in your packet, as well as a schedule of draws. It references very recent price information from the modular home company. So those are order forms with pricing on them. So we know that it's accurate, today, or at least a couple days ago. And Steve believes and has advised us that the cost per square foot is in line with what the market would expect right now. So we felt good about that. And our agreement with the Affordable Housing Trust states that if the project costs exceed the load funds due to changes in the project construction and specifications as a result of the regulatory process necessary for the approval of the project, then we can come back for additional funds. And that's why we're here today. So hopefully you all will support this request, and then we'll be able to execute this change order form with the builder and proceed along. The builder's ready to order these 8 buildings. And so to prevent any further delay, we'd like to get this sorted out sooner rather than later, because I know the whole heads and beds is a mantra that we're all repeating to ourselves. So the quicker we can do this, then the quicker we'll have those heads and beds. And we are still on track for the July, trying to get these units occupied. So just a couple more things, basically why we need it as a grant rather than a loan. We've been modeling the project with the 50% AMI, which is a very low income bracket. And I know that the opportunities out there for 50% AMI are scarce. So at that level, the raising rent, even with the median income being raised a little, at that level, the rent formulas, it just doesn't amount to much. So even if we are to increase, if we want to include that 50% AMI bracket, which I think we all have said is a priority for this project, then we just can't afford to increase our debt service or to take on any more debt. So the town, and additionally, our operating expenses have gone up because now we have 8 buildings to maintain rather than the 5 buildings to maintain, which over the long run, it's going to be a better project, but it still is an additional operating expense that we now need to account for. So the town will still make the interest on the additional loan, which over the 50 years is a good, $880,000. So you're still getting that income from the original loan, but we are requesting these monies in the form of a grant for those reasons. So thank you for listening, and I'll turn it back to you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Ann. Penny?
Yeah, I just want to say that I just want to say that this was not an unexpected request. We all knew that something like this was coming. My real issue is what form it takes. And I have a question through you, Brian, to Ann. How much will achieving the zero net impact decrease the tenant's monthly utility bills? And is that calculated into the rent formula?
Go ahead, Ann.
Mm-hmm. The way the formulas are laid out by the state, we could basically, if the tenant was to be paying their own utilities, then we have a utility allowance. So we would reduce their rent by a certain amount, which we, just kind of off the cuff, we were thinking if these, and really with no data at all, but just kind of saying about $100 per month. Just to kind of stabilize their electric costs. But then it's very hard to say how much that is going to reduce their usage and their end rent payment, but around $100 a month.
Why are the tenants not paying their own utilities?
Well, our experience as managers, we generally believe the tenant should pay the utilities themselves because they'll be more efficient with their usage and conscientious of their usage. Because, you know, if the landlord's paying, then maybe you might be more inclined to keep your heat at 76 degrees, you know, in the wintertime or something like that. Whereas if you're paying, maybe you're more inclined to put it at 68 degrees.
Yeah, that was my question. Why is the tenant not paying the utilities?
Well, the tenant should be paying the utilities. If, you know, the solar component, we'll need to look at that a little more, and we haven't looked too deep on the ownership structure of the solar panels. So that all is to be determined, basically, but
All right, thanks.
my understanding with the solar, the important part right now is that it hasn't been through HDC yet. The way that the design conceptually is being proposed is as a pergola over a parking lot. So in order to do that, there needs to be, we need to know now that it's going to be installed, because you have to put in steel beams that go in before the parking lot goes in. So it's kind of like a timing issue. So the funding has to be available now to include it in the project.
Okay, well, just one more question, if I could, Brian, through you, probably to Tucker. Has anybody figured out what the amortization, what the carrying cost is on this, if it gets extended or added onto the existing loan?
I have not. Tucker, I'll come to you.
That probably somebody should do that, huh?
You mean in terms of how would it affect, like if it were increasing payments during the first 50 years?
Or adding term or whatever.
I mean, yeah, it could be added term.
We just need to, I think we need to have all the information. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Penny. Rima, I'm going to come to Mr. Cassidy just because I think he wants to answer the question or one of the statements that was made. Mr. Cassidy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things real quick. I wanted to say that the contracts Housing Nantucket referenced were predicated upon payment to Fairgrounds Common by today. And so that's number one. Number two, please don't take this as argumentative, but I do believe that there is opportunity to make accommodations for future solar installations, and that's all. You know, to the extent that we're talking about funding, borrowing, or granting, or what have you, I think that everything can be teed up in anticipation of that, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, just so I'm clear on what you said there, Billy, you're saying that you could do infrastructure work and not do the full solar, so you could potentially reduce the $600,000 portion of that request now. And the second is you're waiting on payment that is due today. Is that?
Well, the first is that I'm waiting on payment, but the solar component, what I'm saying is that we would not be foreclosed on providing the solar component if a decision to lay on the table for a month or so is necessary to move this forward. That's all.
Understood. Thank you. Rima?
Yeah, through you, Brian. On the solar, so it's going to be probably not on the roof, going to be separate. The other thing that I wanted to know is, has anyone spoken to Lauren Sinatra about any grant possibilities for the solar? I'm thinking there's got to be something out there to help with that. So I'd like you to maybe explore that option to pay for that.
I think, is that directed to Anne, I would think?
I would say, yeah, probably Anne. I mean, have you spoken to Lauren?
Yes, through you, Brian. Yes, I have, Rima. And my understanding is that there's a community wind fund that is being funded for renewable energy projects, but the funds won't be available, and or at least the grant might not be available, like the process won't be opened up until the spring.
Mhm.
So maybe later is what I understood from our conversations probably about a month ago.
Great, good, okay, thanks.
I think I saw Dave or Rima, were you finished? You had seemed to maybe have it. You're good. Dave, I saw your hand go. Iverson.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Ann answered that. I also had given her a call, Lauren, and hadn't heard back from her yet. So, but it looks like Ann's already figured that out. So, thanks.
Penny, you had made a move for.
Yeah. I just want to talk quickly or briefly about the money that's due to Mr. Cassidy. Is there any reason that can't be paid?
So I do see Mr. Kaiser's hand up, and he is the head of the Board of Housing Nantucket. Let me come to him.
Well, and I just want to say, I want to follow up. Here we are talking about all this other stuff. It's not going to be relevant if this doesn't get paid.
PJ, can I?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was letting Penny finish. Thank you, Brian. Penny, I was going to comment on the terms of the loan and the debt service first, but I think just to cover your question there, I think we were looking for clarity on whether or not we were going to come to terms on the increased funding at this meeting before we knew what the direction going forward was. There's nothing else holding up any payment to Mr. Cassie, and I'll let Ann elaborate on that. However, just getting back to your question regarding the debt service. So as of right now, based on a $6.75 million loan, 0.5% over 50 years or 600 months, we're looking at about $12,700 a month in debt service, or the equivalent of $153,000 a year. And so, with that, we found ourselves with, a slight enough buffer to justify, for our financial purposes, moving forward prudently with this project from the beginning. Now, let's just assume if we include an extra 2.2 million on top of the 6.75 for a total of essentially a rough $9 million at 0.5% at 600 months. We're looking at an increase in monthly debt service to approximately $17,000. So that's about a $4,300 a month increase. Annual debt service increases to about $204,000, and it's about a $51,000 swing a year. And so that gets us, approximately about negative $30,000 annually, which obviously as a nonprofit, with minimal external kind of recurring funding, we don't feel we can absorb. So
through you, Brian, I just think it's highly unlikely that the rental rates are going to stay the same for 50 years, first of all. I also want to say that whatever contractual obligations you have to the developer, that is not contingent on what we're talking about.
I want to echo and I guess question in the modeling was increased rents over time with some level of inflation factor accounted for, or was it a flat rent when you made the assumptions of not being able to take on any increased debt service? I see Ann and PJ. Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, PJ's done. He's certainly here to answer, but so yes, we did. We included increased rents as well as increased expenses, because the expenses are going to go up as well. So yes, we did model both of those. Just wanted to answer why we're withholding the payment at this point. And the answer is because the project has changed so much that our agreement with you all is very specific to a certain project that hadn't gone through the planning board and HDC process yet. So now that it has, and we know that it's going to cost this much more, before we make payments on this, which is a debt to ourselves, we want to know exactly how much the extra costs are going to be and where they're going to come from. So that's why we need your approval, or, we need to know that you'll continue to support the project before we go forward with that.
Thank you, Ann. Rima?
Does anyone know how much term would need to be added if we wanted to keep the monthly payment the same, but add it to the loan? I mean, how much longer would the loan go with that additional fund?
PJ, thank you for raising your hand. I'll come to you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I was, yeah, no problem. I was doing these kind of on the fly going into the meeting, but about approximately 70-year term and amortization.
So adding 20 more years to the term?
Yes.
Okay. Are there more questions at the moment from board members? Brooke?
I appreciate Housing Nantucket's coming to us and asking these questions about the financial viability of the project before they leap into the ordering of the buildings. I think that that's smart and fiscally responsible, and I appreciate that. I'm surprised, PJ, at 20 additional years. I guess it makes sense now that I think about it, but I just hadn't really thought about it. I mean, it's basically increasing the debt by more than 30%. I'm of two minds here, and I'm wondering if there's a way to split the difference in some way, and leave room. I mean, 70 years is a long time to have debt on a project that has this community benefit. It's a really long time. I think the solar is a beautiful aspiration, but I'm not sure on a project with this financial makeup that it should be the leading. Maybe we're ahead of the curve in terms of what's going to be available for subsidy and reimbursement for solar for this particular project. I love the aspiration of it. So I'd be less inclined to finance that as a grant for sure. I think maybe offering you guys the option to add that to the term and then make a financial decision about whether that investment makes sense for this project based on what you find out about subsidies or grants that you might get access to that would avoid your having to do that. And anyway, that's where my thinking is at this point. And I do understand the time pressure that you're under, and certainly the increased cost, is just, it's the nature of the beast at this point. And this is an important project for our community, and I want to support it in a way that's fiscally responsible and doesn't put you guys in financial jeopardy. So I don't know how to get there yet.
Okay, and thank you, Brooke. Is there another member of the board with a question or comment? Dave? But Dave, before you go, I do just have a question for Vicky on this. I think that there will be some discussion on this matter for executive session, but if there's any approval made by the Affordable Housing Trust, it would then go to the select board because any amounts would be over $100,000 for an approval in their January meeting. Is that correct?
Yes. So you always, for any expenditure over $100,000, you're going to have to go to the select board. So you will not have final approval to be able to say definitively, how much money, you're willing to either grant or loan to the Housing Nantucket until the select board has their meeting.
And the timeline of this would be sometime early January for the select board to be meeting on it, as I understand.
So the select board's executive sessions are usually the first week in January. So we would have to see if we can get that on for their executive session that's coming up at the beginning of January.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicky. Dave, to come back to you on your comment or question.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with what Brooke said, and I agree. I think we should take the solar or at least the most of the part of the solar out of the equation at the moment. And if we could figure out what it would cost us just to have the infrastructure existing, so it wouldn't cost us more to hook it up when we hopefully do get a grant or something to pay for it. So that would at least take a little chunk out for now, and then we'll look for separate funding for that down the road. I think would help things out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And a few moments ago, you had raised your hand. Was there something on one of the comments you wanted to address, or?
Well, yes, I appreciate your willingness to separate out like what could be grant, what could be an option for a loan, and without checking in with my board, that seems reasonable and something that they would consider. So I think that's a good direction to go. If we, I know everyone's concerned about getting these buildings ordered, and we are very much concerned about that too. So if there was, what we were imagining was if we got a grant approval, we could really move forward with it quickly. If there was some aspect of the project cost that needed to be funded by a loan, we would need to have a board meeting and get our board to discuss and agree to any terms and all of that. So just wanted to put that out there, that would need to be included in the timeline.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ann. Any more board comments, discussion? Not seeing, I think procedurally, Penny, did you have a?
I guess I just am not comfortable with the contractual obligations that aren't being met until we sort this through. I don't know if Vicky has any advice on that, or maybe we talk about this in executive session. I don't know.
I would probably recommend that you discuss this in executive session
That's what I
further
thought.
to how you want to proceed with the funding. I just want to keep in mind the fact that you always are going to have to go to the select board for their approval. So no matter whether you were to decide today or need further information in order to make a decision, that's all, that approval is going to have to be withheld until the select board meets an executive session and will approve or not approve. So just bear in mind that you're always going to have to go to them, and that's always going to have to be considered in your timeline.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Brooke?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Housing Nantucket. If this board were to give you a sense of the meeting that we are willing to support either a grant or a financially viable loan extension for the portions that we're talking about, the increased costs related to redesign and to building costs, in principle, I think I can say that certainly in principle, I want this project to move forward. I think the reasons it's costing more are other than the solar, are largely not in your control, have not been in your control, and if we believe it's a better designed project that's worth investing that portion, that in principle, I could say we will work out a financial way to do this. It won't necessarily be a grant, but we'll make sure not to put the project at financial risk. Is that enough for you? Would that be enough for Housing Nantucket, given that we won't get a final green light from the select board until January anyway, and then we hold out the next week or two to sort out the details together for something to present to the select board in January? I know you want an answer today. I'm getting a sense from this board that we do need a little bit more time to digest it and discuss it. So
I think one concern is what happens with the modular company as well. in the timeline if there's a commitment not made financially, you know, to the developer or the deposit with them. You know, where does the overall project timeline go if there is continued delay? And I guess thank you for raising your hand, Billy, because I guess that's a question for you.
I thought that I had made it plain earlier. There is no agreement going forward. If Fairgrounds Common is not paid today, there's nothing to talk about. So, thank you.
So I think procedurally, I'm keeping this item open for us to carry into executive session. Can I get a head nod from either Vicky or Tucker or some leadership, or some other people are head nodding that? Okay, so not looking for a motion. Is there any more comments from board members or anything, questions for anybody that we have here prior to moving on? Okay, Anne, thank you. PJ, thank you. Stephen, thank you for being available on that. So with that, we'll keep us kind of moving forward. You know, echoing Brooke's excitement for this project overall, right? I think we're at a precipice and a tipping point, but we all want to see this come to fruition. So we'll move to the Richmond Wildflower Acceleration. Oh, wait, sorry, before I close this, I saw 2 last-minute hands. Mr. Hollister?
Sure. Just before you guys go, I wanted to say that I think it's important for the board to know that Housing Nantucket moved this forward to you as quickly as they possibly could. As soon as they had this pricing information, they said, hey, okay, we got to get on the next agenda. And so they have done so. And also just to clarify, relative to the contractual obligations, the $750,000 payment is due upon ordering of the modules. And so not all of the modules have been ordered as of yet. And so maybe there's a chicken and the egg about, do the modules get ordered? Does the payment get provided? Does the payment get provided? Do the modules then get ordered? But it is not a hard and fast date. And so I think Housing Nantucket wanted to bring this to all of you as quickly as possible to keep this train on the tracks and keep things moving in a timely manner. It just wanted to make that clarification for everybody's benefit.
Great, thank you, Stephen. And Mr. Cassidy, one last comment.
I realized, yeah, I realized after I had said that I in no way, shape, or form was that meant or intended to be threatening or anything. You know, we just we need to be made whole to move forward, and I think that we all want the same thing here, and that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing to grasp on, right? Everybody here is working for the same goal, right? Everybody wants to see this project developed in the most sensible and fiscally economical way that we can do it. So, all right. So with that, we still have a lot of items left on the agenda to keep moving through, and we're running some time. So thank you for who was here to present on that one. I'm going to move to the Richmond Wildflower Acceleration and the status of those building permit issuances. So Dave, is that you, 781-760?
Correct. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members, staff, and council. Nice to be with everybody again today with some progress on our Meadows 2 Phase 2A Wildflower acceleration effort. We have been making some good progress both on the regulatory and construction side. I don't know if any of the board members have been out there. I think maybe Tucker or Ken have pretty regularly. But to the most important item here in terms of the town's position vis-a-vis safe harbor, on the regulatory side, as the staff is aware on almost a daily basis, we've been hustling to kind of overcome these inherent delays and inefficiencies with the BBRS process to get the local building permits issued in time so that Tucker and Ken and Vicky can package up the certification modification request to DHCD. And we've been working on that earnestly, have had some higher level meetings with the Plus team, and have figured out a way to get that done. The building permit for the first building, which is our D3 building or 2 Wildflower Drive, was issued several weeks ago, so that's not an issue. The building permit for the second building, the M building or the 2 Blue Stem Place building, that BBRS approval came through about a week ago. That information is sitting with Paul Murphy in terms of final application, and he has committed to getting that pushed through in the next day or two. And then the last of the 3 buildings, the K building, the 1 Blue Stem Place building, which has 6 of the 24 units. Similarly, we got all that paperwork finalized up after a meeting with the Plus staff a week or so ago. That is now sitting with Paul as of this afternoon, and he has promised to get his final review done there in the same expedited manner. So as I indicated to the staff, and I believe Allison has some materials, she may want to put them up or not in terms of photos as well, or plans. Absent some really unexpected issue with Paul, which I completely don't expect, we should have those permits in hand by probably Thursday, I would think at the latest, maybe Friday at the very outside, but we've been in communication with all the senior staff over there, Andrew, Leslie, and Paul, and they know how time sensitive and important this is, and they've made a commitment to get it done in time. So we have every expectation that'll be done. We're standing by in case there's anything else Paul needs, but I was in touch with him several times yesterday, and I think we have every confidence this will get done, and we're standing by and available to Tucker, Ken, Allison, and Vicky for anything they need for us to supplement the request to DHCD as well. So challenging as always, but we got through it, and we do appreciate the help in the brainstorming with the housing staff and the Plus staff to get this done. So that's where the permitting stands. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions on that piece, and then I can give a brief impact on the actual construction.
I don't have any questions. Does anybody else on the board have a question related to the permitting? Tucker, I see you just went off mute.
I mean, I just wanted to thank Dave and the Richmond group for all of their efforts in this regard. I was going to mention the regulatory agreements have been revised and are, signed by both the town and Richmond and are in DHCD's hands. And so, this is, very much appreciated.
Thank you, Tucker. Any other comments from anybody? Brooke?
I'm just going to say thank you as well. This has been a rush to the finish line on all accounts. And it feels like we were running headlong into a deadline, and wow, it's amazing. Thank you.
Now, Dave, did you want to cover some aspects of the construction, or did you want to hold on that, or what's your fancy there?
No, if you will, Mr. Chairman and board, just a quick second. I don't know, Allison, if you want to put up the picture too. They're not terribly exciting, but in addition to the regulatory progress, we have been going full speed ahead out in the field. The modules, first 4 of the 12 modules for the first building were delivered in the middle of last week. They're sitting at the site. Allison's got a photo of that. And the foundation excavation for the first 2 buildings is underway. The one for the first building was completed today. The one for the second building will be completed tomorrow. Our foundation subcontractor, which is Action Flooring, John Heikkinen, is on island and ready to start forming. So, unless we just have a crushing weather event in terms of cold, which we totally don't expect given our microclimate on island, we'll just keep plowing through, and the first buildings will be set the week right after New Year's, and then the next 2 buildings will just keep coming right after that. So, we're still dealing with these supply chain issues, which I think I mentioned to the board in the last meeting, where we're actually pivoting and potentially taking 2 of these buildings without windows and without kitchen cabinets, and we're going to install those in the field if we have to. But our modular company, Signature, is doing their best to overcome that. So full speed ahead. We don't expect any delays in the occupancy right now. And as the board and the staff is, completely aware, the demand is just unabated. We've got, all these units over reserved, and we'll also be starting our outreach in terms of the actual AMI marketing pretty soon, right after the new year. We didn't want those applications to get stale if we did have any delays, but now we're confident enough on the outer 2 buildings that they're not going to get held up. So full speed ahead. Thank you very much for your continued support. And, it was a little challenging, but as always, it takes a team, it takes a village, whatever trite but accurate phrase we want to use. And we appreciate everybody's help, everybody's support, and full speed ahead.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you all.
Sorry, I'm going to come back to the right window. So closing Richmond Wildflower update. The next item we have on the agenda is item 7, ATM citizen warrant article by Hillary Rayport. Presentation. Mrs. Rayport, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, thanks very much for having me. It's great to see everybody. I really appreciate the invitation to come to your meeting and tell you a little bit about my warrant article. I've met some of you, but I don't know most of you, and you probably don't know me either. So I just wanted to say a couple of lines about me and why, why I'm putting forward a citizens warrant article, explain what is in the article at a very basic level. My real main objective of being here is that housing is addressed in my article, and I want to make sure that what is being proposed reflects really what the housing community as a whole wants to see as far as representation in the Planning Commission. So I hope that before we close the discussion, I can have some indication of that or how to get there. And the other objective is that one of the main reasons why I'm putting this article forward, which is a amendments to the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission, is if it does nothing else but start a conversation island-wide about long-range planning, I feel that the goal will have been, we would have made progress to the goal. So all that being said, my name is Hillary Hedges Rayport, and I'm a resident of Nantucket and Boston. I'm obviously a Nantucket voter, and I've been coming with my husband to Nantucket for 20 years. We've been homeowners here for 17 years, and he has been a lifelong summer visitor of Nantucket, and his parents have been coming here since the 1950s. So I, like most people, a lot of the people on this call have encountered Nantucket, and Nantucket does something to you, and that's where I am. So I'm here all year round, back and forth, but I am a seasonal resident. So I also am, my lane, so to speak, is preservation. I'm a member of the Historical Commission. I helped revive and get the Historical Commission reappointed. The Historical Commission is the long-range planning part of preservation. So it's Nantucket's municipal preservation planning group. And I chair the commission, but I'm really interested in a lot of things on Nantucket. I'm very concerned about our harbor. I'm very concerned about housing. I'm concerned about open space in general. So that brought me to look at long-range planning. So I've been pretty active politically for about 2.5 years now, trying to see what I as a citizen can do. And we have a town meeting form of government. And the citizens are the highest authority. The voters are the highest authority on Nantucket. The town meeting makes the laws, and the town meeting legislates. So this is my attempt at introducing some legislation. And I'm really viewing this period, the citizens warrant articles are due very early in the process. They're due in November. And this period between now and, the end of February, I guess, is when discussions can happen. So all of that being said, can I share my screen? I just want to show you all some of the language in the FAQ. Okay,
Yes.
great. Here we go. Okay, so I'm now going to tell you the basic features of my warrant article. So the purpose of the warrant article is to improve accountability, transparency, and responsibility of the Planning Commission, which on Nantucket is called the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission. I know the people in this meeting range from having extremely detailed information about this commission, having served on it for a long time or currently serving on it. And probably there's some other people who know less about it. So I'll just say that it is the regional planning agency. It has an important role in securing grants for Nantucket. And it is an independent commission that is responsible for long-range planning. And long-range planning is like 30 years out. Planning is a continuous process. So it is actually our NPNEDC, or Planning Commission, as I call it, is it functions as a metropolitan planning organization, and it is under law obligated to engage in what's called 3C planning, which means continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive planning. So those are the responsibilities of the Planning Commission. I am suggesting some changes in the membership of the Planning Commission. Currently, our commission is comprised mostly of other commissions, members of other commissions, and then there's also 3 at-large members. So today it includes all 5 members of the planning board. People run for planning board and they are ex officio appointed to the NPNEDC. So I am suggesting that instead of all 5 members, that it include 3 members of the planning board, which is still a quorum of the planning board. Today, the county commissioners, which is, the same members of the select board, have the right to appoint 1 member to the NPNEDC, and that is remaining unchanged. Ditto, the Conservation Commission, 1 member, it will remain unchanged. Right now, 1 member of the Housing Authority, the Housing Authority may appoint 1 member. And I have suggested that it be 1 member of the Affordable Housing Trust. And I hope we can talk about that as a priority after I finish going through all of the proposed changes. The next is 3 people appointed by the NPNEDC. So this commission appoints its own at-large members, which is unique. And I've suggested, and this is really the biggest and most consequential change of this article, is that those people instead be elected by the voters. Right now, cultural resources are not represented on this planning commission. So I have suggested that 1 member of the historical commission be appointed in the same way the CONCOM and the select board county commissioners appoint a person. The director of the DPW was also ex officio part of this commission since it was created in 1973. And special legislation or a home rule petition was presented, and the legislature agreed to remove the DPW director in 2019. And I am suggesting that that person be put back, or a town manager's designee involving public works. So the membership is still 11 members. And I think I've described how it will change if this passes. The other thing that is material, the other change is that it includes an obligation to report at town meeting and report in the annual report of the town, which is in here somewhere. The chairman has to make a report here. The Planning Commission shall produce and make available a written report of its activities annually. That is currently not required. And if you pick up the, the bound published town report, you won't see a report from this commission. The last change is that regarding the mission. So, again, this commission, it's been amended a couple times in recent, modern history, but it hasn't really had a comprehensive update. The language is about the mission is currently, in order to plan for the orderly and coordinated development and protection of the physical, social, and economic resources of the island of Nantucket, there is hereby established the NP and EDC. And I have changed that to something a little bit more comprehensive. Just, I think they feel they already have a remit to do this more in-depth planning, but to make it more explicit. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to plan for balanced economic growth. So not just, development of economic resources, but actually balanced growth. The preservation of natural resources, including open space, coastal resources, ground and surface water and ocean quality, as well as other natural resources, the provision of adequate capital facilities, including transportation, the development of an adequate supply of fair, affordable housing, and the preservation of historical, cultural, and recreational values. So those are the changes. I started talking about this project back in March and April. I took it to the Government Study Committee. I did get feedback from Tucker, that if we wanted to have the group that is really involved with planning for housing on this commission, that would be this committee. I really want this to reflect what the entire housing community wants to see. So I'm here to listen and have a discussion about that, and also answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Hillary. So I guess at this point, we'll open up for a handful of questions. We do have a number of other things on the agenda today, so I want to keep some focus on some action items that we have. But can I open this up to board members and questions? Penny?
Okay, I'm not going to sort of belabor my questions from when this article was before the FinCom, but I am the current chair of the Housing Authority, and of course the Housing Authority appointee to the Affordable Housing Trust. And we were just a little surprised that nobody approached us initially about this. I know that Renee is on the call and probably has an opinion about this, especially the part that gives our seat up and replaces it with something from someone from the Affordable Housing Trust. I would like to suggest that perhaps Mrs. Rayport considers having the planning board appointee on the Affordable Housing Trust instead of eliminating the seat for the Housing Authority person.
The planning board appointee?
There's a seat right now that's currently held on the Affordable Housing Trust by a planning board member. Dave Iverson holds the seat right now.
Oh, I see. And so that person would make the appointment, or that person?
No, that person would serve on your proposed new commission
As
along
one of the
with
planning board
the
seats that you're
right
requiring.
Which could mean that there's 4 members of the planning board.
Yep.
Or that just one of the required 3 is the Affordable Housing Trust designee. So you have 2 housing advocates.
So just a suggestion. The other thing I want to point out is that I think that there's value in having appointed seats. The whole reason that they were appointed was to represent different areas of expertise, and exactly because they are not political. And this was intentional with the formation of the Planning Commission. That's it from me. Thanks.
So am I understanding correctly that if the language is that the planning board can appoint 3 people and that the planning board representative of the Affordable Housing Trust would also automatically be on this commission, then the planning board member would be, then there would be 4 members of the planning board, or there would only be 10 commissioners.
My issue is less with the mechanics of that than eliminating the seat for the housing authority.
But what about having the housing authority designee to the trust be also on the planning commission?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Oh, you said the planning board designee.
Oh, okay.
I was really confused. Yes, the housing authority designee. That makes sense.
Brian,
Yes.
perhaps I can help clear. Hillary, the way I would phrase it is the planning board has 3 representatives, one of whom must be the person from the planning board who's the designee to the Affordable Housing Trust.
So I think
so one of the 3 planning board reps has to be the planning board member who serves on the trust, is I think what Penny's suggesting, and the housing authority seat remains. So there's 2 housing advocates on the.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to, I mean, I think that's an excellent suggestion. But Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you are like the designee of the NP and EDC versus the planning board. So we'd have to make sure it was a planning board representative that met the criteria Penny's suggesting.
Okay, I was, now I understand, Penny, you are suggesting that the housing authority seats stay unchanged and that the planning seats continue to be 3, but that the planning board designee to the housing trust is also on the planning commission.
Correct.
Got it.
And just for the record, I don't support them being elected, just my personal opinion.
Penny brought up Dave.
I just, and maybe I'm missing something here, but other than the representation on the NP and EDC, how is this going to help us with affordable housing?
Are you, Mr. Chair, is that?
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, to Hillary.
Yeah, go ahead, Hillary.
Okay, so Dave, obviously I'm going through this process because I think that something could be better with long-range planning. This is my, well, I do think it is objectively true, and it is objectively true that we have 3 major long-range planning documents coming out of the planning group, which are the open space plan, the municipal harbor plan, and the master plan. And they're all from 2012 or earlier. Our municipal harbor plan is currently expired. It expired in 2019 and we're operating under extensions. So planning, it's supposed to be continuous. These plans are supposed to be updated all of the time. So what can we do? And what concern is it to the public on Nantucket that that we have plans that are out of date when our community is transforming so rapidly, and land use and intensive land use is such a large part of our community. So this is where I get into the accountability and the transparency part. It's possible that 3 horrible people will run, or 3 horrible people will ask to be appointed, or, at the end of the day, it all comes down to people in government. But I do believe that when you're elected, you are more accountable for to the society. And I did begin with the focus on the fact that the NPNEDC appoints its own 3 members. So then the choice was to either have those 3 members appointed by somebody not the NPNEDC, in which case there would at least be a little more visibility and a little more accountability, or to have them be elected. And I was very cognizant of Penny's concern, especially because, you know, in the preservation world, Nantucket is the only historic district in the entire state, the only town historic district that elects its commissioners. All other commissioners are appointed. And the way other towns tend to manage this is they give the right of appointment to different groups. So like the local historical society will have a right of appointment. The real estate board will have a right of appointment. They kind of spread it around. And Penny's right, you know, it does get political whenever you're electing somebody. But ultimately, I observed that on Nantucket, there is a tradition that when you're concerned about equality and transparency and keeping control with the voters, these seats are elected. So we have a lot of elected positions on Nantucket. We elect members to the CPC. We elect members to SHAP. We have an elected HDC. And I kind of made my personal peace with this because it seems like this community is small enough and tight knit enough and referenceable enough that the elected seats seem to work. So, and you know, we've had problems with appointments, frankly. So that's why I went with the elected. And just to wrap up, Dave, I don't know if it will make housing better, but I think for sure it's going to make things more accountable and more transparent on this commission, where I think that's a problem. Thank you, Mr.
Dave,
Chair.
I'll come to you. I just have one comment, Hillary. From my experience watching elections over the last 20 years, I do find it hard to get people to run for elections based on the time, the commitment, the public view of it in this small, tight community. So I do feel we lose a lot of qualified participants in our community that are willing to volunteer and sit on boards like these and put in a lot of hard work that aren't willing to go through an election process. But I'll leave that where it is. That's just my personal opinion. I'll come back to Dave for his response and then to Penny.
Yeah, and just a couple of things. I mean, a couple of things that bother me about this is the transparency piece. And I just feel that when people start throwing that word around, it suggests that board members, town employees are not necessarily honest, which really bothers me a lot. And maybe that's not your intention, Hillary. But I just caution that phrase. And then as far as the planning documents, the long range planning documents, the master plan, it's a 10-year process. Every year after the 10-year census, we actually even began the process before that. So it's not an instant process. It is all sections of the island. Everyone does their bit. It all comes together. So it's a long process. So to say that we're failing there, I don't think is a fair statement, just to make that clear. And I do think that there's some parts of this that are valid, but a lot of it confuses me, to be honest. So that's all I have to say. Thanks. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you, Dave. I want to come to Penny, and then I want to give Renee an opportunity because she was brought into the conversation.
Just very quickly, I just have to say that I don't feel any less accountable because I'm appointed than if I were elected. And I think that is the case for most people who are appointed. So to paint it broadly that we're somehow less accountable is just not accurate. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Penny. Renee, your name was brought up, so I do want to give you an opportunity.
Okay, I never met Hillary before, so I'm introducing myself and to the rest of you. Renee Seeley, Director of the Nantucket Housing Authority. I too was quite surprised and shocked that someone would propose to eliminate the Housing Authority representation on the Planning Commission, which has been a part of the Planning Commission since its, its beginnings. You wouldn't have that discussion with us first. Which seems to suggest to me that you don't know much of our history as well as far as our accomplishments of affordable housing in this community. We've always been the largest affordable housing developer on Nantucket. And through the efforts of the Nantucket Housing Authority, we have a Housing Nantucket, which will ultimately and hopefully become one of the largest affordable housing developers on Nantucket. So we have been very active, and your position about elected versus appointed, the Nantucket Housing Authority positions are elected. So to eliminate that Housing Authority seat, you're eliminating that elected person, even though they're appointed by the Housing Authority. And the Housing Authority representation on the Planning Commission is important to watchdog the planning process, because again, we're always consulted when it comes to the development of affordable housing. And that representation, that Penny's voice, for example, Bert Johnson's voice, for example, on the Planning Commission, he represents all of us, and particularly the Housing Authority Director. I'm not allowed to sit on the Planning Commission, but I have the hands-on knowledge of what's happening with the low-income community. And so any Housing Authority member that speaks at a Planning Commission, they're speaking for all of us and in my knowledge of that low-income community. So it would be a huge loss to take away the position of the Nantucket Housing Authority position from the Planning Commission. It's kind of like, if it's not broke, why fix it too? I too don't understand that comment about the transparency. The Housing Authority has public meetings. The Affordable Housing Trust has public meetings. So it's very transparent. If anyone wants to know what we're doing, you just attend the meetings. So I oppose your article, and I hope the rest of you do too. And I think that, again, it's been a successful Planning Commission through all these years, and I don't think we should mess around with the membership. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Renee. As we have a lot of other things on the agenda, I'm going to look to kind of wrap this up. This was an educational opportunity and presentation. Hillary, I'm happy to give you a 90 seconds wrap up.
Thanks, I appreciate the opportunity to respond. Regarding the Housing Authority seat, I have had feedback from the whole housing community on this call that you believe that the Housing Authority seat should remain on the Planning Commission. And I can easily make that change to my article, because I would actually just be taking away something that was proposed and making no change. And I'm happy to do that. I will say, as a member of the public, I was advised by the Housing Office on Nantucket that the Housing Trust should be represented on the Planning Commission. I then went to the Housing Office or the Housing Authority's website, and I didn't find any posted meetings. So I need to find out where to find this information. Wasn't clear to me. And so that, I think we can check the box on Housing Authority. And I've also gotten the feedback about the Planning Board. So I will take both of those things to heart. And I also want to apologize for any offense that I caused. I was trying to do my homework, but I will say that my deep research has been in areas other than housing, because I felt that housing has been well covered by this committee. Regarding transparency, I don't mean the word pejoratively. The commission does not make reports. So the transparency means very specifically that the commission should make reports. I don't think that's controversial. They should make reports. And it should be in the legislation that they should make reports. So that's why it says transparency, and please don't take it for anything more than it is, although I will be careful about using terms that people perceive as being unwelcome terms. regarding the accountability and the appointing, the problem is not that they're appointed. The problem is that the commission appoints its own members. And I understand that this is intentional because it isolates this commission. They can pick who they want to have from the at-large community to be on. And this commission has been around for nearly 50 years. It's gotten amazing things done. It's had periods of incredible productivity. We are not in one of those periods now. So, Dave, I don't know what to say. I do want to announce that I'm looking at a hummingbird out my window. So if there are any birders around, you should come over to my house right now because there is
Hillary, we're headed off track.
Sorry, I'm getting off topic, but the birding community is going to go. The birding community is going to go nuts. So anyway, I do think that there's room for improvement. I think that a conversation, a focus, and some of these changes will really help them. And I really appreciate your feedback, and I will absolutely take action on the things you've suggested.
Great. We appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
And I'm going to get right on birding Nantucket and make an announcement. Thanks.
Renee, I think you're going to follow up and send an email out with how to find the meetings, right? Is that what your hand was up?
That's exactly, but I'm not sending anything out because it's on the town's website. So if you want to know, it's a public meeting, it's posted with the town clerk. You go on the town's website, look up meetings and agendas, we're there.
Okay,
Great.
I'll look, I will
Excellent.
look again. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to move to the next agenda item. Thank you very much for the report.
Bye.
We are on now item number 8, 12, and 12R Bartlett Road purchase. So I think I'm going to turn this to Tucker or Vicky to lead.
In the interest of expediency here, I'm going to let Vicky lead us through these next two items.
Okay.
Good afternoon to everybody. So as far as 12 and 12R Bartlett Road, hopefully you've received copies of a purchase and sale agreement and a temporary access agreement, which we've been negotiating with the current owners of the property. We've reached pretty much a final agreement on the purchase and sale that is before you. There may be a couple of other additional minor changes to it, but with, like I said, this is almost final in form and approved by the seller and by me. In addition, there is a temporary access agreement, which is under negotiation. I've provided you with the latest version of the access agreement, which is going to be the license for the trust to be able to enter on the property and do the necessary inspections and testing on the property to make sure that there are no environmental and building issues that would prevent the development of an affordable housing project on this site. So I would ask that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, but this would allow the trust to purchase this property, and we would be have sufficient time to do the inspections with a closing date right now of February 15th. But that, depends upon the completion of the inspections and what the inspections find. If you have any questions,
Thanks, Vicki. I'm going to take over the chair temporarily. Brian has been recused on this item all along, so he's stepping away from the meeting for this discussion and action if we take a Tucker.
I just wanted to maybe ask Dave to comment on, I think, something that he recently became aware of with regard to access off the site. And this is something we're, looking into further, but there may be a restriction here.
Yes. So 30 Acres Road is a private road, I guess. And there has been access issues with the people that control that road. I think in the past, there's been some problems gaining access or just not being allowed to gain access. So I'm hoping that we can get in touch probably with the homeowners association there and at least barter some sort of deal that involves maybe at least just a portion of whatever we do there, having access.
Vicky?
So Tucker had brought this issue to me, and we've, in discussing it with him, I pointed out that the purchase and sale agreement is currently drafted, provides that the trust would not need to accept the title to this property if in fact there were any easements or restrictions on it, which would prevent the trust from being able to develop it for affordable housing purposes. So if we were to find out that these, say, restrictions on the access of this property would prevent the development of this property for affordable housing, we certainly would have the ability to be able to ask the seller or to negotiate with perhaps, like you said, the homeowners association to provide us with a release that would enable the development of this project and have an access out onto that private way. So there are ways that we would be able to be protected until we can determine definitively whether in fact, this is going to become an issue for us. We're going to need to do a title, obviously, and see exactly what is in the chain of title as far as restrictions on this property. And there may be other restrictions for all we know that may prevent us from developing this for affordable housing. But in order to just be able to proceed, we could have the execution of a purchase and sale agreement subject to the fact in this agreement that the property is going to have to be able the property is going to have to be able to be developed for affordable housing purposes. Does that answer your question, Dave?
Yes, Vicky, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, through you.
That's
Yes, and I mean, I also think, I mean, I just hope that, I think maybe a tender touch with that HOA would be more effective than a bulldozer. So I think that we should definitely, that there should be some discussion about how to approach that, because we don't really have to have access for the whole property, but it would be nice to have the ability to have two forms of egress there. So thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Certainly.
Tucker,
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I just was gonna say, it's not necessarily a showstopper, but I just, they came up and I think we should just all be aware as we move into this.
Okay.
And I will say, I reached out to the fire department to kind of get an initial reading on, whether from their perspective, the two forms of egress would be problematic. And they said, obviously pending further evaluation, but that it is not necessarily a problem from their standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Vicky, did you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to add that, as I said, the purchase and sale agreement is really just a means for us to secure our ability to move forward on this transaction. It allows us to be able to do our due diligence, to be able to do the title, zoning or access issues or whatever other issues during our inspections may come up. So it gives us the ability to be able to do that. And if we find that for some reason we are not able to develop this property in a manner that that the trust wishes, then we can certainly terminate the agreement if we had to.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from other board members? Okay, any comments or questions from members of the community who are present? Okay, seeing none, is the board prepared to take action at this time?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'm going to do it in two motions. I'm going to make a motion for approval and execution of the purchase and sale agreement between Bear Vault LLC and the trust for the purchase of land and buildings located at 12 and 12R Bartlett Road, Nantucket, shown as lots B and C on a plan recorded with the Nantucket County Registry of Deeds in Plan File 46-J.
Okay, Vicky, is that good to form?
I just want to add one thing to it, and that is subject to any final negotiations that are reviewed and acceptable by town council.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Do I have a second with that revised motion?
Second.
From Rima, okay. Help me, Vicky, with, I have a hand up from a community member. Is it while the motion's on the floor? Can I take comment?
You could, yes, you could, I think.
Okay, Mr. Cassidy?
Brooke, my apologies. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought that was done, and I wanted to address something that Dave had said earlier, which I think is entirely apt and the best approach. And I feel that there will be, I feel that a gentle approach with the neighborhood association will pay dividends. And I think that this is a great spot for what you're suggesting. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Billy. Okay, so if there aren't any other comments or questions from the board, by roll call vote, Penny Dye.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
And I think myself, and that's it. Votes aye, and Mr. Sullivan is recused. So that passes unanimously. Okay, and go ahead, Penny.
I'll make a second motion for the approval and execution of the revocable license agreement between Bear Vault LLC and the trust for the license to enter upon the property located at 12 and 12R Bartlett Road, Nantucket, for the purposes of conducting surveys, inspections, and tests, and an environmental site assessment of the property, subject to any further negotiation that town council would like to do. Did I say that right?
Subject to any further negotiations reviewed and approved by town council.
Thank you. That's what I meant to say.
Okay, that's what I heard you say.
Thank
Do I
you.
have a second?
Second.
That was a tie between Rima and Dave. I'll let Ally decide. Okay, by roll call vote, Penny.
Aye.
Rima.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Great. Okay. So that's it. Brian, coming back?
And I'm back. Yes, thank you for covering that. We'll move on to item number 9, White Street, and we'll come back to you, Vicky.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a deed that has been presented by the Bird family, Alpine and Donald Bird, trustees of the Chandler Surfside Realty Trust, are deeding the property to the trust for $1.2 million, property being at 8 White Street in Nantucket. There is a restriction that is being imposed on this, which is an affordable housing restriction, which was set forth in the purchase and sale agreement, in which the trust is restricted to use the property for year-round residential housing purposes. And in the event that they're not able to do so, despite its diligent efforts, then the property may be conveyed by the trust to a third party, with 100% of the sales proceeds being deposited in the affordable housing trust accounts to be used for other affordable housing purposes. So, so you have a copy of the deed for the property, and then there's an acceptance of deed that is to be signed by the trust. And then I have also provided you with a copy of, I believe, the IRS Form 8283, which would ultimately be signed by the trust once the appraisal for the property is submitted after closing. And basically that would just state that the trust has received the property that is being delivered, and they are receiving a charitable donation for the amount of $800,000. And I believe that's everything that I had sent to you. Oh, and the settlement statement, excuse me. And So you've received a copy of what is really a brief settlement statement. Really, it's just the amount of money that's being paid, the amount of money that's being wired to the seller's attorneys, and it reflects the broker's commission that's going to be paid outside of closing by the seller's attorney. I think that's all the documents. So I would ask if you have any questions, I'm here available to answer questions.
Great. Any questions for members of the board? Tucker?
Just was going to add that, Brian Turbot is teed up for closing for next week, and the monies for this transaction are going to come out of the $6.5 million authorization as part of Article 10 this past summer. Those monies are the most flexible in terms of AMI levels that we can serve. And the environmental report, phase 1 came in clean. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Tucker. Vicky?
And I just want to add one other thing. So this closing will take place as of December 20th, which is next Monday. And the reason for the delay is that we are required to have filed a uniqueness determination on this property. And the expiration date for this is as of Friday, December 17th. And we have not received any objections to the filing of the uniqueness determination as of now.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Dave, is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move that we vote to approve and execute the following documents to effectuate the trust acquisition of 8 White Street. Acceptance of the deed from Alpine C. Bird and Donald J. Bird, trustees of Chandler Surfside Trust, to 8 White Street, Nantucket. Second, to settlement statement for 8 White Street. Third, any other closing documents approved by town council necessary to effectuate the trust purchase of 8 White Street. And further authorize the chair and vice chair of the Board of Trustees to execute the document on behalf of the trust.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second from Penny. Any discussion? Seeing none, vote by roll call. Rima Sherry? You're on mute?
Aye, sorry.
No problem. Dave Iverson?
Aye.
Brooke Moore?
Aye.
Penny Dye?
Aye.
Brian Sullivan is an aye. And I'll take the moment to thank the Bird family and Ken, Vicky, and Tucker for all their hard work here. Very, 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 very exciting. Item 10, communications website, social media discussion. Oh, Penny, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can we push that off to the next meeting, please? Is that
Just gonna
possible?
ask the same thing. Everybody okay with that? Great, so carried over. Other business upcoming,
Can we push the rest of the agenda off to the next meeting?
with the exception of item 13.
Please.
Do need to go to executive session for a little while.
Okay.
So if there are no board comments, we'll move. Go ahead, Brooke.
So I move that we adjourn the open meeting, not to return to open meeting for the purpose of entering executive session for the purpose of considering the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Second.
And that's a second from Penny by roll call. Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. So go 3 or 4 minutes and then come back. Quick break. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.